our Shiny is a way that you can create web apps. So this is something that I've used before when I would create projects with a friend from my program. What we did was we created tools in for basketball players in the NBA. So we got a lot of data sources from all over the internet, especially basketball reference, and we created a web app that you can access from anywhere that will help you analyze further what you can get from these web apps. So, for example, in this first one, um, it's called NBA Team Comp. So basically, what you can do from this web app is you can use it to identify trends, certain teams that you can compare with one another. So, for example, play type comparisons. If you have Milwaukee from the 2019-2020 NBA season, you want to see which teams from the past um, few years are the most similar to them based on their offensive plays. For example, if you want to compare them based on their efficiency, based on the frequency of plays that they run. So these are the teams that are most similar to them, no? Based on certain methods like clustering, um, other types of machine learning that you can learn in the future. It's just hard to explain everything now, but this is the realm of what you can do on and R Studio. So that's why it's one of my most commonly used and the one that I'm most comfortable with, because there's so many things that you can do while also being user friendly. And then another thing that you can create as an output on R Studio or R in general is an HTML file. No? So for example, this is one of the assignments that I had back in school. It just summarizes through sentiment analysis the amount of reviews or the different reviews that you can find on Glassdoor, which is a place where you can review your employer or where you can look for possible job opportunities. No? So what I did was I got the frequency per sentiment, so which words or which emotions were the most occurring or were the highest occurring across all the reviews. So obviously there's positive, there's trust, there's anticipation, but there's also disgust, anger, fear, sadness, and negative. So you can see that there's a wide spectrum of things that you can do there. And last tool or the last set of tools that I'm going to be explaining is the visualization tools. So you can use this for dashboarding. Dashboarding is basically what I was able to do here in this web app. You can create a list of inputs that you can display or that you can create displays from based on the things that you need. So basically here is a list of teams, the graph, and the table. So these are three different visualizations that you can create. So this is one visualization, match teams. The graph is another visualization, and then basically a dashboard is a mix, a cohesive mix based on the usage that you need of different visualizations. No? And then you can use that. You can use this or other visualization tools like Power BI or Tableau. You can all access them for free. Especially Tableau, since you're all students. If you're watching this, you can access Tableau for free because it's free for students. Power BI is also free to use on a certain extent, and of course you have R Shiny as well. No? And then a sample or where to get inspiration for projects and how you can use it in JMA. So this is basically where you can get basis for your future projects, things that you can look at for inspiration if you want to pursue different things with data, stuff like that. So obviously there are different documents that you can access both online and offline. The Office one that I mentioned earlier was something that I pulled from this website called The Pudding. It's one of my favorite websites. It's basically a data-driven pop culture website where they do different analyses on different things that may be of interest to certain groups of people. No? So for this one, you have the office dialogue and 5 charts. So a breakdown of how every character contributed to the show. So you can have how much did everyone say per episode or the entire series. You have the share of dialogue throughout the series, similar to what I made before. And you can also do the sentiment of these lines by showing the most negative and positive characters. So obviously, on the more negative scale, you have Angela. On the more positive scale, you have Andy and Jim. Uh, and then you can also do it through web apps, like I mentioned earlier. For inspiration, you can also go through GitHub. So GitHub is a website where people store their code, document their code for people to see. It's an open source website where you can see and access people's documentations of their different projects. A lot of developers, a lot of people who use programming languages use this as sort of a resume builder. So you can see that a lot of the more impressive projects are located here. So you can go through that. You can search Medium articles as well. So for example, if you have a certain interest, for example, you're interested in sports, you're interested in football, and you want to see different projects that are related to football. There are a lot of those written on Medium, and all you have to do is Google search it. So you can search football, data science, or analytics projects, and there's just going to be a lot of information available for you there. You also have the site 538. So this is basically a mix of data-driven articles, data-driven initiatives revolving around politics, current events, sports, and everything in that spectrum. So a lot of news outlets, a lot of media outlets are resorting to data now to be more informative and to be more interesting, because it gives people a way to standardize and a way to um, substantiate their claims, substantiate their opinions, and it gives people more reliable news sources. So in JMA, data can be used internally or externally. So externally, obviously, it's very clear how you can do this. You can create promotions, you can do targeted marketing. If your social media channels are active, quite unlike what we had before, you can find out the demographic or the psychographic of the ones who interact with your channels the most. So for example, if you're doing event planning and you have Cosmos, you can pull the data from Facebook, the Facebook page of Cosmos, for example, and you can track mentions or do social listening, where you can see which topics are the most discussed online, whether that's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you can see different things. So for example, if you're doing Cosmos, you can see which bands are the most mentioned. They're the ones that are most asked for without having to scroll through everything. You can see what initiatives were the most liked or enjoyed or had the most interactions online, which ambassadors or or hosts have the most clout. So you can see which ones, and you can pick and choose how to put everything together when you do when you create an event. Eventually, when events are allowed again. Um, Internally, you can also do the similar thing. So I know you guys still have pre-sem surveys per committee and for JMA as a whole when you do REAF. So you see what your members' interests are for initiatives, what their interests are in general, what you can use for videos, what career paths people are taking, or what career paths people are interested in. So you can choose the right topics for this initiative, for example. You can even use it for recruitment, but it's important to note that you use the data with your understanding of these people, of course. So I'm gonna touch more on that later. You can have different, or you can find sources to learn from different medium, from different media, from different ways of learning. So it really depends. It ultimately depends on the type of learning that you thrive best in and what your main resources are. No, so uh, what I did when I was studying was I studied very formally. I got a master's degree. I started everything from scratch, and I learned best there because I learned best when there's a lot of demonstrations, when there's a lot of organized lectures, when there's a curriculum that you guys follow. So it may not be your cup of tea, but it was mine. So that might not be able to apply to you. But of course, there are other alternatives as well. So there are online courses, there's Coursera, there's Udemy, there's edX, there's LinkedIn Learning. There's other online formats, especially now, that's where it's most important that you can access. And you can learn different things based on the level of learning that you want to have. So for example, you want to learn the basics of R or the basics of Python, you can do that. And you can also create networks. So there are Facebook groups, Discord channels, and if you know someone who's part of a network or a community of analytics professionals or students, you can connect with them on LinkedIn. You can connect with them on Facebook. If you know someone personally, just shoot them a message. Um, then yan. So basically, some important points that you're gonna want to take to heart and what you want to get into when you're starting out with data is you have to realize that everyone's learning something new to do with data. So don't be scared to start, to try something new or to ask questions. It's a very common thing to have when you get imposter syndrome. So it's basically thinking you don't belong here because other people are better. But like I said earlier, from anyone who's the most expert in their field to the most basic in their field, they know quite a little bit, just quite a little bit of what there is to learn in that field. So there's always room to learn. There's always room to ask questions and things like that. Second is that data analytics is using data to guide, not direct decision making. So like what I said earlier, you still have to have a good understanding of the setting, the industry, the market, or whatever you're studying. So both go hand in hand. So it guides your decision making based on that. And then lastly, the most important and something that I still do to this day is know that Google is your best friend. So anything that you can't understand or want to do, but you don't know how to, someone has probably encountered that already before and has asked something online. So especially since it's a very tech-centric industry, it's a very tech-centered space. There's always ways to access forums. There's always ways to research on what you want to do. So for example, if you want to remove all the letter A's from a single column, you just Google how to remove a specific letter from a string in one column or Python SQL, whatever your tool you're using, and it's gonna show up. I promise you, 99% of the time, it's gonna show up if you Google the right thing. So I've done this hundreds of times at work, and maybe thousands of times in school. So if you're learning, just keep Googling, keep asking questions, and keep learning. So with that, I think we're good. And if you have any questions later on, just feel free to message me.